The main activity, for example, in 2006, was that Article 11 organized a number of public forums, for example, in PJ in March, and then subsequently in Malacca, Penang, and as well as in Johor Bahru. The focus of the forums was on constitutional provisions, as well as to raise awareness about the plights of these individuals, like the ones that we've discussed.
In PJ, we had something like 900 people turn up on a Sunday morning. Why? At that stage, Article 11 was virtually unheard of. But the suggestion that we were going to speak about equal protection for all was something which seemed to have galvanized the reaction. 900 people. Yeah, Malacca, a month later, we had something like 600 people on a Friday evening. Why? And then, mind you, Penang, PJ and Malacca, there was no protest.
The latter two forums in the year, the one in Penang and especially also the one in Johor Bahru, there were a lot of protesters at the forums that disrupted the proceedings, and in fact in Penang the forum could hardly go on at all.
The protests only happened after the success of the first two. So as we began to make headway, the protests happened.
I think to the forum itself, everybody, public was invited. Anybody could come and speak.
And chose not to participate or to disrupt it.
Yeah, in fact, in Penang, while the disruption was happening, I think the organizing team at that point, I was one of the speakers, and Pat Moysen can confirm this, but I remember about 15 of the protesters actually being allowed to register and come in. And while they were in the hall, they began to echo. So there's no interest in actually dialogue, and I think this is something that we've seen in quite a few different instances, not just Article 11, but any other efforts to try and actually have open, meaningful dialogue.
The protesters seem to have linked Article 11 with the IFC, that's the Interfaith Commission, and were under the misapprehension that the forums were being held to discuss the revival of the IFC.
The conservative side, I'll call them conservatives, would rather approach the issue as Islam is monolithic. We define Islam, and you cannot question anything to do with Islam. And then the barriers are set that way. And when you set it that way, if a position is taken, how do you have any dialogue or any situation? And we saw that happening in the Interfaith Initiative, and we see that happening in the Article 11 scenario as well. So why the reactions? It's because what we're doing is challenging a very, very comfortable status quo on the part of a small group of people, a small group of minority extremists, I would say, who are using the silence of the majority to fuel their position. And the fact that we have an extremely political context, which unfortunately has been allowed to shape the legal framework that we exist in. Article 11 is trying to displace that and trying to restore what should correctly be the position that is the rule of law. The two initiatives are very different. The first initiative, the Interfaith Initiative, was aimed at persuading the government to set up a statutory interfaith body. So it was a specific mission with a specific objective. This initiative is merely about the Constitution. It's about upholding constitutional rights. What the relationship is between the two, I cannot see.
The protesters had affiliated themselves with a group called BADAI, Badan Anti-IFC. And even that name sort of gives it away that they are opposing the IFC, which, as we discussed, is a separate initiative. Now, groups like that have been disseminating a lot of information about what their concerns are and what their activities are, and that may have brought into the fold people who may not know that much about either initiative, but are pulled in because the information that they are provided leads them to believe that we are either an effort to revive the IFC, or that we encourage apostasy, that we quote-unquote insult Islam and undermine the position of Islam in Malaysia.
Why is there a relationship in the minds of certain people between the two initiatives? I think it's simply because, one, it's tactically advantageous. It's tactically useful to draw that association because in the Interfaith Commission initiative itself was maligned, was demonized, was wrongly represented to be something than what it actually was.
Some of the individuals who were involved in the IFC initiative were also involved in the Article 11 initiative, and maybe because there wasn't much understanding or clarity at that time about the objectives and the idea behind the Article 11 initiative, these two were confused with each other.
But if you're going to use that as a yardstick, then anything and everything we've ever done in our lives as activists, as human rights lawyers or human rights activists or civil society activists should similarly be tainted. And that can't be right. That's completely illogical.